What do we think of Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins' passing game performance and the big comeback win over the Ravens? What's the fallout of the Trey Lance season-ending injury in San Francisco? And what's up with Tom Brady and Russell Wilson? It's time to break it down right here and right now as we begin another edition of Locked On Fantasy Football. Key takeaways from Week 2 Sunday.
Our Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. As usual, I'm your host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL and fantasy football for sportingnews.com. What a week 2 of Sunday action here. A lot of big comebacks, numbers that look like they weren't going to happen, then explosions all over. We also had another big quarterback injury, lost Dak Prescott in week 1. Trey Lance going down with a similar injury that Prescott had in 2020, a ankle injury. He's out for the season here. So devastating news there. Miami's offense looks great. San Francisco picked up the pieces there well without Trey Lance. And then a couple quarterbacks struggling there. Tom Brady, Russell Wilson among them here in week 2. So, yeah, definitely some disappointing returns and some big surprises. We're going to react to all of that here on today's show. Thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. We're free and available to you on all platforms. Today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a daily fantasy site made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. That's prizepicks.com, promo code Locked On. All right, let's dive into the big story there, and we're going to play our games that we've done here. So we'll do, Are They For Real? First, these are the performances that stood out here that caught us off guard and really dazzled us on our fantasy teams. Hopefully, a lot of these guys weren't on our fantasy football benches. Then we're going to look at Panic or Patience. We're going to play a game with a lot of concerning fantasy football situations, disappointing players across the board. We mentioned Brady, Wilson. Wasn't all that great for Joe Burrow and Kyle Pitt. So don't get me started on Kyle Pitts. We'll get to him. And then a lot of key injuries as well, not just Lance. We had James Conner get hurt for the Cardinals out there in the NFC West. So we'll break all that down for you on today's show. Let's start with the Dolphins and Tua Tagovailoa. 469 yards passing. That's right. 6 touchdowns. He looked lost for an entire half against the Ravens. Actually checked that. It was the entire 3 quarters. Then all of a sudden, what happens here? He gets going. He gets 102 with massive volume for Tyreek Hill. He takes care of Jalen Waddle as well. So 3 touchdowns for Waddle now this season. 102 for him. Mike Gesicki resurfaces and finds a touchdown. The other touchdown went to River Craycraft. So this Dolphins offense was dealing there, came back big time against a tough Ravens secondary. They talked about it. There was just breakdowns there in coverage. And Tua was throwing a lot of good passes, but the after the catch stuff with Hill and Waddle with their speed, incredible. So Tua, I think, is for real here because of these 2 receivers. Now, there's not much else here. Cedric Wilson actually got hurt in the game there, and they didn't throw to Chase Edmonds. They actually started Raheem Mostert there. We'll get into Mostert in a minute, but Tua Tagovailoa looks real. Again, when you have 2 elite receivers there, Hill and Waddle, they're kind of interchangeable with their speed and quickness all over the field and open field. Looking really good here, and they get the Bills, and it looks like a tough matchup there. We know it next week, but it's in Miami. We know it's going to be a back and forth affair between 2 explosive offenses. So welcome to the Dolphins here as one of the explosive offenses in the NFL. So, yeah, right now it looks like Hill and Waddle are going to perform really well together as clear-cut wide receiver ones. Tua definitely is in the top 12 based on some of the landscape of this position here. So, Tua, are you for real? Yes, he is. Another quarterback that sneakily went off here is Jared Goff, 256 at 4. And a lot of that tied to Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, St. Brown is absolutely for real. He's now gone 8 straight games there with the big totals, with scoring a touchdown. He's good for that every week. Now he's involved in the running game. He's a great red zone target. We also saw Josh Reynolds find the end zone here for Goff. So massive game for Amon-Ra St. Brown. Really, the Commanders cannot cover the slot. So St. Brown is going to be a big part of what the Lions do. Goff, he's kind of locked into him the way he was with Cooper Kupp in Los Angeles. So similar type receiver in the slot, tough to cover. You can scheme him open. So Jared Goff has some good streaming value. We talked about that here. The weapons are pretty good. The offensive line is good. So I think he's going to be more in the conversation as a play based on matchups. I get the matchups are very good here. Eagles and Commanders to start the season, but the Lions offense certainly has a lot going for it right now, and you might get Jameson Williams back soon. So that would add to a DJ Chark and St. Brown. Even TJ Hawkinson, Goff's favorite target, not doing anything here, but 256 and 4 for Goff. I think it was a little bit of underrated story. We knew Carson Wentz stepped into a great matchup and delivered there for a second consecutive week in fantasy, but Jared Goff, yeah, for real, because again, the weapons are pretty incredible there now in Detroit. All right, we talked about Tua. Raheem Mostert was a bit of a surprise there for the Dolphins. He started over Chase Edmonds, only 14 touches for 79 yards, but clearly that 49ers connection with Mike McDaniel getting Mostert on the field, so that's what we're seeing here. So going forward, he's looks like the guy you want to trust a little bit more than Edmonds. So yes, Mostert is for real as long as he's healthy. Keep in mind this guy has a lot of knee injury issues there, but looks like we need something there to break it down. But I would say an indication of his health was the way the team moved on from Sonny Michel in the preseason as well. So Mostert, I think, is going to see a bigger role, but 14 touches cannot be ignored. It was only 79 yards, but watch out for it becoming bigger. Now we get to a couple rookie receivers that went off here. Absolutely. So we're going to dive into receivers. Garrett Wilson, 8 catches on 14 targets there. The rookie from Ohio State for the Jets, 102 yards and 2 scores. Now, Corey Davis has also been involved in scoring in the first 2 games, but Elijah Moore is kind of faded. So Garrett Wilson has kind of taken over as the Jets' number 1. Joe Flacco, with the high volume, has trusted him in the first 2 weeks. There's a good chance, however, Zach Wilson could return, but Wilson and Wilson have had good chemistry. This might actually help Moore a little bit more and fade Davis. But I think Garrett Wilson is here to stay. That first round, that promise is here. So when you get 14 targets and your offense trusts you quite a bit, you know you're an integral part of what they're doing. So breakout game for the dynamic rookie from Ohio State. Again, 8, 102, and 2 on those 14 targets says that he's going to be heavily involved. Now, Drake London almost got that many here. So these are in relation to other things. I mean, Garrett Wilson going off, Elijah Moore being disappointed. Drake London is now going off with Kyle Pitts kind of fading into the background. So London, he was a USC product, went back. Actually, Wilson's also from California. But you look at this game going back to Los Angeles, 8 catches, 86 yards, and a TD. And it could have been a bigger game. I mean, Marcus Mariota, if the connection was a little bit better. But Drake London, with his catch radius and just overall talent, making some plays here. Look, this maybe was an underrated concern there for Pitts that London is going to come on. But definitely London is for real here. We liked him as a wide receiver 4 or 5, just like Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. You can throw it in that mix. Jahan Dotson. We know Dotson's gone off and is a legitimate part of that Commanders offense there. So we liked him last week. So now a couple more rookies emerged there with Wilson and London joining Dotson. Now, here's another weird stat line here for another guy that scored and went over 100 yards receiving. Nelson Aguilar, 6 for 110 and a touchdown. Now, are you for real? I'm not going to buy this one. This team doesn't throw a lot. It's a different guy every week. They're still locked into Jacoby Myers and want to throw to Kendrick Bourne, but Tyquan Thompson is down. Devontae Parker hasn't fit really well in the few offense. So Aguilar is going to get his. I think part of this was that the coaching of Bill Belichick offensively with his co-coordinators was called out there by Rex Ryan. He said, you're not going to get things done with guys such as Nelson Aguilar. Guess what? Belichick just said, okay, Aguilar, go out and do it. And he came through with a big game against that Steelers secondary. So 6, 110, and 1. But are you for real? I'm not going to bang the table to go after Nelson Aguilar. Now, we talked about Jahan Dotson arriving on the scene quickly as a rookie, good chemistry with Carson Wentz, kind of lining up with what the vibes were there, playing off Terry McLaurin as number 2. But what we didn't notice was that Curtis Samuel was also fully healthy here, becoming a big factor, kind of like Amon-Ra St. Brown. They also like to use him in the wrinkle in the running game. And Curtis Samuel doing a little bit of Deebo Samuel here. So 8 touches, 99 yards, and a touchdown, including a nice little rush there as part of it. So really like Curtis Samuel. He's been kind of like a cog there that they've underutilized, but part of it has been he's been hurt in Washington, and I think Scott Turner has been trying to wait to use him a little bit more. Now, they did sign him, brought him over with the Panthers, so they had special roles with him. But now you have that threat of Dotson, you have a more legitimate quarterback, you have what McLaurin does every week. So Samuel's going to get some real favorable looks lining up all over the field here, in the slot, outside, wherever. So Samuel, I think, for sure, is for real here at wide receiver. How about Noah Brown? 5 catches, 91 yards, and a TD. Caught all of his targets there against the Bengals. Led the Cowboys in receiving with Cooper Rush. So we were trying to find some value there. Was it going to be Simi Fioco? Was it going to be Houston, the kid that they really like? Or were they going to go in a different direction at this position? Would Jalen Tolbert be active? But no, Noah Brown. Good chemistry being seen with Cooper Rush. So 591 and 1. I'm going to pump the brakes on this one. They might need him actually more because Dalton Schultz got hurt. So we'll talk about that later. But CeeDee Lamb outproduced by one Noah Brown. So I would say not for real, and some guy I'm not going to invest in consistently, but someone I think that should be on your bench. Now, Ashton Doolin, I think this might be only a 1-week proposition. We'll see there, but he was the clear number 1 receiver without Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce in the game. So it wasn't Paris Campbell. It wasn't Michael Strahan. It was none of these guys that are in the mix. It was Ashton Doolin. And again, if we went back to training camp, I would say he was the guy, but 5 for 79 on 7 targets. So not a big game, but playable there. If you had lost Pittman as a wide receiver 3, Pittman probably would have put up wide receiver 1 numbers, but Doolin was definitely playable in his place. I'm not saying he's for real, however, only if they have the injuries there that you can look at Ashton Doolin of the Colts. And finally, are you for real goes to Sammy Watkins. 3 catches, 93 yards. He led the Packers in receiving yardage. Al Lazard came back from his ankle injury to score the touchdown. But yeah, looking at this situation with Watkins and this Packers passing game, I think it's going to be a committee approach when they're not using Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon out of the backfield, either on runs or short catches. I think Lazard is still the guy they're going to look most to in the red zone and try to get him in a good position. But Watkins opens the door there with the 2 rookies, Romeo Doubs and one Christian Watson, trying to get their footing here in the offense for the Packers here, and I think it'll come better. They're going to have to throw a lot more in week 3 against the Buccaneers. Now, before we get into the guys that are struggling, the negative parts of week 2, I do have to tell you here that this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football, as I mentioned at the top, is presented by Prize Picks. We had a pretty good week there with Prize Picks. We liked our Tom Brady under the receiving yardage, hit that. We went over with Mark Andrews. The one we just fell short of getting there was Kyler Murray rushing yards. He, I think, finished 1.5 yards shy of what we needed. So he just needed a 2-yard run. It didn't happen. Unfortunately, we couldn't count the 2-point conversions that he was putting in there with the Cardinals. But yeah, we were pretty close there. We had some good numbers here. We didn't quite hit on Antonio Gibson there with his rushing yards, but overall did pretty well with Prize Picks, especially with the Brady and Andrews numbers there. So you can get into the action too. So all you have to do is go to Prize Picks, and you can really take advantage of their specials here. And really, I love it because it's easy to play here. You pick 2 to 5 players, and they will go score more or less than the Prize Picks projection. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people, just you versus the projections available. Prize Picks offers projections on any sport that you watch. This includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. And of course, the NFL is king. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe, and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in more than 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up to play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, it is time to close the show, or continue the show, I should say. We'll close the show with 2 more segments here, but we're up to the thing that we get worried about. We want to start with the positive note there. That's why we are going with panic or patience in this segment, and we'll close with the injuries there. Now, I'm going to talk about three quarterbacks specifically. Tom Brady has not been off to a fast start. The Buccaneers defense has dominated in wins over the Cowboys and Saints. Not putting the ball up a lot. Mike Evans has been his one healthy receiver. Julio Jones was added to the list, missing the game of Chris Godwin against the Saints. So we knew it was going to be tough. He struggled against the Saints defense here in the past. He ends up with one touchdown pass in the end to Brashad Perryman, of all people. But yeah, they grind out the game. It was a field goal, low scoring fest, and they just had to fight through it here. So hopefully you'll get better news on Jones and Godwin going forward. And Donovan Smith, also the left tackle, missed the game, so it was hard to stay in there and push the ball downfield against the good Saints pass rush. So when we're looking at Tom Brady, I think things will get better. But if the Bucs defense is going to be that dominant and they're going to run enough here, it's going to be tough there to look at the numbers really going up for Tom Brady. It could be one of those early career seasons that he had, like playing off the defense and running game quite a bit with Leonard Fournette. So something to watch there. I think it'll get better, but he's got to have more weapons in there, starting with Godwin. Jones, keep in mind, Russell Gage is banged up during the game. Even Perryman, who scored the touchdown, was banged up, and Evans was not himself, and he also had to deal with Marshawn Lattimore, and then we had the ejection there late in the game. But if the Bucs are winning handily, they've had two double-digit easy wins now on the road against Dallas and New Orleans. When you look at the score in the end, it's not going to be good for Brady's value, but we have what we want here in week 3. It is Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, so that's good stuff. So I'm going to say patience with Tom Brady. Those numbers will come for sure, even after 2 weeks. Now, Russell Wilson, I'm not going to get to panic mode quite yet, but I'm leaning there more than patience with Russell Wilson. Now, I don't know what they're doing in the Nathaniel Hackett offense. They're trying to involve too many people. They're trying to get Andrew Beck involved in tight end behind Albert Okwuegbunam. You're not using Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon in the right combinations here to put up points. So Wilson is locked in with Cortland Sutton. We thought Cortland Sutton could have a big year here, but now Jerry Jeudy has a shoulder injury. So we already lost Tim Patrick with a knee injury before the season. So now you got a shoulder issue with Jerry Jeudy. He's been banged up quite a bit in his career. So Wilson locked into Cortland Sutton, which is good for Sutton, but Wilson only ends up with the one touchdown pass against the Texans defense. And the Broncos just were kind of going through the motions. I haven't liked what I've seen from the Nathaniel Hackett offense so far, not using Williams as much as they should, involving these extra tight ends and kind of get a little bit too creative there with what they're doing. KJ Hamler didn't play, so you're down already Patrick, Hamler, and Jeudy. So a lot of things on Wilson are not great. And the other thing that Wilson is not doing is running. That's an important thing. That's a line of demarcation there. Is he running to produce those cheap points? No, those are not even coming as well. So, again, they were not going to do that. So Nathaniel Hackett has a lot to prove here. Can't say I feel all that inspired. I know it's a reunion/revenge game for Wilson against the 49ers this week on Sunday Night Football, but I know he can feel great about that game at all, the way that Nick Bosa, that 49ers front, and that secondary is playing after really stymieing Dak Prescott before he got hurt late in the game, as well as James Winston. So I know Wilson overall, you can say he's more talented than those guys, but I don't like the vibes there, the Broncos offense, and getting a little bit depleted in the pass game there for Nathaniel Hackett as well. All right, Joe Burrow also falls in this category. What was that, man? We got only one touchdown pass on the road. He had the big turnover mess against the Steelers in week 1 that really hurt his chances there. He had the interceptions and the fumble lost here. Look a little sloppy. He got sick, or he got brought down 6 more times here. So 6 more sacks, 13 on the season. So Burrow holding the ball a little too long, maybe looking for the big plays here. We know when he's on with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who did actually play through the concussion and was cleared from it and scored a touchdown here. A little bit of concern there for Joe Burrow. But again, the Jets are this week. That should be a get-well game. Keep in mind the Bengals did go to New York as big favorites last year and did lose, so they're going to keep that in their mind. I bet the Jets rebound a lot of Joe Mixon here. Take pressure off Burrow, set up the play-action passing game downfield. But it should be a good rebound spot here for Jamar Chase. And we saw Tyler Boyd have a 2-point conversion. Higgins had the touchdown. But Jamar Chase should bounce back along with Burrow here in the matchup against the Jets in week number 3. Now, Devontae Adams, and I'm bringing it up, he's disappointing for sure. I mean, he had the touchdown early against the Chargers in week 1 that kind of disappeared from the game plan. He only had one real impact play there early with the touchdown to get the Raiders going in the game against Arizona. So not a lot there. We thought this chemistry is going to be fantastic. This is also a terrible secondary with Byron Murphy and Marco Wilson for the Cardinals. But what happened? Murphy played over his head. He had the game-winning touchdown, scooping up the fumble that Isaiah Simmons caused. But those young defenders finally played well there. But the Raiders, you thought they would scheme Deante Adams open. I get it. He's still got a touchdown to kind of salvage his day. He's going to be a big touchdown guy for this team. But I think Derek Carr and the entire offense was very disappointing here. Adams should put a lot there, and Hunter Renfrow was lost with a concussion. So, yeah, it's not looking as great as we expected with Carr and Adams in that reunion here. And that, again, teams are going to focus on him. They need other people to step up. If Renfro's not in there, it's down to Darren Waller. Darren Waller was rather effective there against the Cardinals. But, yeah, let me look at there now. I'm going to put the Steelers' entire offense on the panic watch here. Now, there's one guy coming through. It's Pat Freiermuth with the tight end. But you want the wide receivers more involved. George Pickens should be tapped into a lot more here. Deante Johnson has been okay and pretty moderate with his numbers here in PPR leagues, but in standard, you're not getting enough from Johnson here. So, yeah, you want them to get going. I don't know. They're not involving Chase Claypool enough here. Najee Harris, now this banged up offensive line. Mason Cole was hurting. James Daniels underachieved a little bit there at interior blocker. So, really, the Steelers and their offense just anemic here. They couldn't break 20 points here like they did last week, and they needed defense to do that against the Bengals in week 1. So the Steelers offense fading hard. Again, we invested in this team a little bit, wanting shares of Kenny Pickett, what he's doing, not Mitchell Trubisky. We're tired of Trubisky here. Again, Pat Freiermuth, managers, fantastic. That's great for them with the production, but we need a lot more. I mean, when Trubisky in reality is kind of using his tight end as a security blanket, there's not going to be a lot with the downfield passing game. So we'll watch that here. They play the Browns on the short week. They're not going to make the change this week, but they can make it in the following game, sure. So we'll watch that. They do play the Jets in week 4. So maybe Kenny Pickett will get a good opening game to go after. And maybe we'll have a little bit of Wilson Pickett, land of 1,000 dances there. When Wilson plays Pickett there potentially in week number 4. Let's hope that they put in Pickett. They need him. They need something going here with this offense. Now, the Bears' entire offense is on notice. Now, David Montgomery did rush for 100 yards, but it was an empty 100 yards. He didn't score. Khalil Herbert still had some good bursts on the limited opportunities. So, this Bears offense, Jack Gentry, has left a lot to be desired. Equanimeous St. Brown is the leading receiver at this point after 2 weeks. That's not good. He was the journeyman. Byron Pringle's been hurt. Bayless Jones has been hurt. That doesn't help either to have those two guys not a big part of what they're doing. And then Darnell Mooney completely erased by Jair Alexander in the secondary for the Packers. So really disappointing. You have Justin Fields running. That's about it here, but definitely it was fluky with those 2 touchdowns in the rainstorm against the 49ers. Now, Ezekiel Elliott, yeah, I think you're going to panic here. Tony Pollard looked fantastic. He had great burst. He had that long run there, had a touchdown there against the Bengals. He just looked like the better back overall. So I think it's officially time to panic over Zeke Elliott here. Recommended you sit him. I actually liked Pollard this game because of the outside running ability, and he really came through for us against the Bengals. So like that, like how that is playing out. So Elliott to Pollard, I'm not sure that the torch is entirely passed here. I think they want to still establish Elliott. He could get back on track as early as this week against the Giants, and not a very good run defense. They allowed 100 yards to Christian McCaffrey just this weekend, but something you're going to look at for Zeke Elliott. And if you got to stop really trusting him now as an RB2. Now, Jonathan Taylor, you want to trust as an RB1. We'll just chalk up this Jaguars clunker of a performance, whatever you want to call it. It was just not very good. The offense is dragging him down. This week, they will try to get better against the Chiefs. Taylor has had some good success. The Chiefs' run defense was a little suspect. They were okay in containing their first 2 opponents, the Raiders and Chargers, but Jonathan Taylor needs to get on track. It was really disappointing for him to not keep going, and the yardage was very bad here in relation to Matt Ryan and that offense throwing 3 interceptions. So Taylor needs somebody out there, the line, some weapons that are like Pittman and Pierce to actually do something where the attention's all on him. And that's a concern here because Ashton Doolin's not going to scare any secondary. They're going to still stack it and try to stop Taylor and make Ryan beat them. So at least Carson Wentz was a good facilitator for Taylor. That has not happened so far with Carson Wentz. The next worry is Alvin Kamara. He was scratched with that ribs injury, and they put in Mark Ingram, but it was a committee of him, a little bit of Taysom Hill running the ball, and a little bit of Tony Jones, and it's just not very good here. Dwayne Washington, and so Ingram and Washington were also banged up. But the Saints running game has been bad for a while now. Kamara is on the shelf. He could be waiting for the suspension. The ribs were too intolerable there. So we'll see. It could be a rebound spot this week for Kamara, but still, oh no, not feeling it great here with the Saints running game in Kamara in particular. Now, let's go to Kyle Pitts. This has been terrible. Is he going to be a 2-catch, 19-yard guy every week in that range? I mean, he is being deployed and running out there, but the Falcons are getting the ball a little bit better in the hands of London, as we talked about. So has London replaced Pitts as the primary option and Pitts as the complementary one? That's not what we drafted Pitts for in the third round. So really disappointing. Again, he's trying to limp towards 1,000 yards. It was kind of an empty 1,000 yards with only one touchdown last year, but he's got to do a lot more than this, and this is disappointing. So that's on the coach, Arthur Smith, to try to scheme Pitts a little bit better open here in 2022. Now, the Seahawks have a double dip here. Rashad Penny didn't look all that great with the return of one Ken Walker, the rookie. Played okay, but still that Seahawks pound running game just still not working. Their offensive line has limitations. We knew the 49ers matchup was bad, so two of our biggest sits last week were Elliott and Penny, and it came to fruition here. Now, we also faded DK Metcalf at the same time of pumping up Tyler Lockett. Now, this is a trend that will continue. Geno Smith's going to try his best with DK Metcalf, but he likes the short to intermediate passing there to Tyler Lockett. He's a guy that schemes himself but open better with the slot and all that. So, again, Metcalf continue to fade him, Lockett bump up, because I think Geno Smith and Lockett is really where it's at in this passing game. And Metcalf just really struggling to get going. The downfield ability, the red zone ability, just not manifesting himself here with the lesser quarterback situation in Smith. Now, elsewhere at wide receiver, we mentioned Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis having great games. Elijah Moore just absolutely silent here. So really tough situation there with Moore. Again, more mouths to feed. They're a little bit more diverse offense. Don't forget about the tight end Tyler Conklin. Breece Hall is a pretty good receiver out of the backfield. So Elijah Moore, just a lot of competitions for targets and touches, and we're seeing that come to fruition. Still a very talented player, but maybe not going to be unlocked as much as we like without Zach Wilson in there, with whom he has better chemistry than Joe Flacco. David Njoku, it's Harrison Bryant. So everyone was on Njoku, banging the table for him a little bit as a sleeper tight end that was going to have a big role. They did get him a little bit more involved, but Harrison Bryant still was there. Amari Cooper is still clearly the number one target there for Jacoby Brissett. Brissett does like to target the tight ends, but we haven't seen that a lot. So it's really strange with Pitts and Njoku, because you look at the quarterbacks, Marcus Mariota, Jacoby Brissett, these guys are known for throwing to the tight ends quite a bit, and it's not happening here. So these offenses may be diversifying a little bit. Drake London being a bigger factor when we think of Atlanta. With the Browns, I mean, you had other receivers step up here, but pretty much it was Amari Cooper being the dominant number one there for them. So that's helped to fade Njoku, especially when he's splitting time with Harrison Bryant. Now, so I'm going to do panic on David Njoku, patience with Kyle Pitts, and panic on Elijah Moore. Now, let's look at Darnell Mooney here. Yeah, I'm going to panic on him. This offense looks terrible. He's the number one, but they're still throwing to Equinemius St. Brown a lot more than him in key situations. Cole Kmet also under that same umbrella here. The Bears are just not throwing the ball enough to their key targets to make either fantasy football relevant at the moment. So you can't play Kmet, you can't play Mooney until you feel it. But maybe next weekend against the Texans, a chance for a get-well rebound game. That game is in Chicago. So Mooney maybe overdue for something big, and they're going to course correct a little bit in that Houston game in week number 3. And finally, George Kittle, I think it's time to panic. 2 missed games with the growing. It looked like he was out there doing some drills and he could play, but yeah, I think you're panicking. But Ross Dwelley back in the mix here as Tyler Kroft got hurt for the 49ers. So Dwelley and Jimmy Garoppolo have a pretty good chemistry there. So look out for Dwelley there if you need a replacement for Kittle. I mean, remember he had that big couple touchdown game a few years ago sitting in for Kittle. So they do like Dwelley most to fill in that role. He had a 38-yard touchdown last week against the Seahawks. So keep that in mind here as a pivot. It's a deep waiver wire situation here in week 2. All right, so we've gone through our Are You For Real and our look at the panic or patience segment of our show, the guys to focus on most here from week 2. We will close looking at some injuries that we need to navigate through. So already quite a few that have piled up here. As we know, it's already there in week 3, going into week 3, coming out of week 2. So we'll break that down for you in our final segment here on Locked On Fantasy Football. Before we do that, I do have to tell you about Turo. Turo is the world's largest car-sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. Browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. Or you can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget. and just need to get from point A to point B. You can also test drive that new electric vehicle that you've had your eye on to see how it fits in your everyday life. Many tour hosts can even deliver the right car to you. And that comes right to you, right to your door. Every trip you take with Turo is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Ditch boring rental cars and find your drive only at Turo.com. All right, it is now time to close the show with our final segment. We're going to look at the injuries here. And the funny thing is we put Trey Lance in our final segment because, again, this is not as big of a devastating injury as we think. I mean, we do like the upside of Trey Lance. Let's hope that you got a pretty viable backup in 2 leagues. I didn't play Lance, and I was fortunate there, but I didn't want to go that direction. I wanted to wait and see a little bit to see if he got healthy and started playing well without those rainstorm, but the rainstorm was not what affected him. It was 2 Seahawks landing on him awkwardly. So Lance breaks his ankle. He's out for the season, a fracture. Really bad break for fantasy football. But Jimmy Garoppolo came in, got those guys going. Deebo Samuel had a pretty nice game there against the Seahawks. So some normalcy restored to what the 49ers offense was. We'll see if Kittle returns. So that's going to help. Again, Lance reportedly didn't have the greatest chemistry with Kittle, so Garoppolo and Kittle are reunited here whenever Kittle comes back. I would expect he has a good shot, and you want to play on Sunday night in this very critical game against the Broncos, already at 1-1, both teams at 1-1. So watch out for Kittle, but definitely Garoppolo can get the ball in the hands of Deebo and Kittle a little bit more. I think Brandon Ayuk is a little bit of fade with Garoppolo in there, but the running game's still looking great here with the offensive line. Trent Williams, Jeff Wilson Jr. led the backfield as we expected here, but we did see a lot of the rookie Tyrion Davis-Price. Something came to mind. Hot hand approach certainly there, but Davis-Price definitely beat out Jordan Mason there for the key touches there in San Francisco behind Jeff Wilson. So Wilson, we said, was a good, valuable RB2 or flex play this week. He came through, but Garoppolo, again, they didn't miss a beat. A lot of teams would have just packed it in. Their season would be over, but you have Jimmy Garoppolo coming off the bench and doing his thing. Easy win, 27-7 here for the 49ers. Now, James Conner is a bit concerning. He always has an injury this year. It's an ankle, so it's probably going to cost him some time here. They had to replace him with a combination of Darrell Williams, who got the red zone touch for the touchdown, and a little bit of Eno Benjamin. So we'll see how it plays out here with Connor, but prepare to make other plans, I would say, going forward, because he's ruled out pretty quickly there from a return against the Raiders. Now, Damian Harris had a bit of a knee issue, so we're going to watch that. What is it going to take to get Ramondre Stevenson the touches we're looking for in the passing and running game? Maybe it's an injury to Harris here that we're going to look at. So remember, Ty Montgomery is on IR, so that's why we felt great about Stevenson, but they didn't need him too much. They kind of grinded the game out. Harris was looking pretty good there. So the knee injury, we're going to watch out for sure. Now, Jerry Jeudy, shoulder injury, coming up lame, had a catch early, but then disappeared, we know, with the injury. So it was a lot of Cortland Sutton there for Wilson. That's really the only passing game asset I like. There is Sutton with the Broncos. So Jerry Jeudy, a lot of concerns there and what's going to happen if he can stay healthy now, a guy with a long injury history, and that's going to change the fortunes again for Wilson if Judy's not out there playing off the coverage attention of Cortland Sutton. Now, Hunter Renfrow is in the mix as well. That he has a concussion protocol here, so he has to be cleared to play this week. Same thing with Devin Duvernay. He didn't be out there to return the kick there late in the game. Duvernay has a concussion as well, so we'll see about Renfrow and Duvernay. They'll have to be cleared here to be available for you as a wide receiver 3 option here in week number 3. Then finally, an injury that we're going to track as well, Dalton Schultz here at tight end. I mean, knee came up lame, could be an MCL injury, so yet another weapon and skill player going down for the Cowboys. So Michael Gallup, maybe he'll return soon and eat up some targets here. But they need Gallup now. If Schultz has to miss time to the injury, Schultz has been a key target there, not only for Dak Prescott, but for also Cooper Rush. So something we'll watch with Dalton Schultz for sure. A little bit concerning there with the knee issue. And again, he avoided the torn ACL. They wouldn't know that right away, but it's an MCL, and we know that's going to keep him out multiple weeks. Maybe it's like the Zach Wilson injury, so maybe 3 or 4 weeks there. So we'll watch the pecking orders. That could help Noah Brown a little bit with CeeDee Lamb. But again, we're not going to trust too much in this Cowboys passing game there beyond Lamb at this stage. Should Schultz miss again? Schultz was a key guy. Now Tony Pollard should get a little bit more run as that outlet receiver as well for Rush. And so a lot of Pollard and Lamb, I think, is the way they're going to have to move the ball here in Dallas. All right. There you have it. There's a breakdown of the key injuries there, including Trey Lance going down. It was a bummer to see. I had him on a couple teams. I was ready for his upside, and week 1 was brutal, and I was able to pivot away from him in week 2 with Carson Wentz filling in one league and then going to a great streamer there in Carson Wentz. So again, it's tough, but you can make it happen to Trey Lance again. Hopefully you didn't invest too high of a pick in him. You got some really good values at the other positions, and then had another strong backup quarterback here to go to. So hopefully it's a little bit different from the Dak situation. He's clearly the biggest injury here that happened in week 2. The biggest storyline, of course, the Dolphins offense exploding and beating the Ravens right up there. The Cardinals coming out with Kyler Murray and racing their big deficit against the Raiders. He also had the Browns lose to the Jets, blow a big lead there. So a lot of blowing big leads. The Rams nearly did it against the Falcons, but didn't quite play out. So a lot of bad things that happened here, but we're going to try to keep it real here for fantasy football. And that's what we did here. So are you for real, panic or patience, and our injury report here as we kick off every week in Locked On Fantasy Football that way. Week 2, we did it. We will do it also in week 3 here. So again, thanks for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Now, again, tomorrow's going to be all about the waiver wire. So pick up Tuesday, looking at the waiver wire pickups that you need to make, looking at the injuries and things that happen here in week 2 to help your rosters here. So check it out. It's a Pickup Tuesday waiver wire look there on Tuesdays on Locked On Fantasy Football. Now, make your second listen to Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson give you the expert NFL analysis you need in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. For Locked On Fantasy Football, this has been Vinnie Iyer. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll catch you there. Good luck if you need anything in the Monday night games, and we'll talk to you tomorrow. Look at waiver wire week number 3.